was given at the last cabinet meeting of the current government held with Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina in the chair at the Prime Minister's office in Dhaka today. The law has been framed in consistence with the newly elected Bangladesh labour law. The existing regulation so far required an EPZ labourer organisation to have at least 30% of workers to form Shromik Kollan Shomiti Federation, while the proposed law set the threshold to be 20% to make the units more favourable for workers. The Cabinet, in another decision, has constituted a 5-member Cabinet Committee headed by the Cultural Affairs Minister for reviewing the report of the 9th Wage Board for Journalists submitted to the government. The committee has been asked to submit report immediately, as there is an obligation to publish the Gazette of the award by January the 28th of 2019. The 9th Wage Board Award for Journalists would be declared after review of the Cabinet Committee. The Cabinet approved the draft for amendment to the Chattogram Hill Tracts Land Acquisition Regulation 1958. Following the amendment regulation, the people of Chattogram Hill Tracts would get compensation in increased rates for acquisition of their land. The Cabinet finally approved the draft of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman Aviation and Aerospace University Act 2018. Besides, the Cabinet also gave the final approval to the drafts of the International Mother Language Institute Amendment Act 2018 and the Bima Corporation Act 2018. Cabinet Secretary Muhammad Shafiul Alam said these while briefing reporters at the Secretariat after the meeting. He said, at the beginning of the meeting, the Cabinet congratulated Bangladesh national cricket team for their Test match victory against visiting West Indies. The Cabinet also expressed profound condolence at the death of Taramon Bibi, country's lone gallantry award Peer Pratik recipient female freedom fighter. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has said the government is framing a policy for protecting the rights of the disabled, ethnic minority community and disadvantaged people in the government jobs. The Prime Minister was addressing the inaugural function of the 27th International Day of Persons with Disabilities and the 20th National Disabled Day at Bangabandhu International Conference Centre in the capital this morning. At the function, the Prime Minister distributed awards among 3 successful disabled persons, 4 organisers and 3 organisations. This year's theme of the day is empowering persons with disabilities and ensuring inclusiveness and equity. Addressing the function as the chief guest, Sheikh Hasina said her government wants that persons with disabilities, ethnic minority community and disadvantaged people get proper jobs and their rights are ensured. There, that system must be rebuilt, and the government is preparing that policy. The Prime Minister said the disabled people are near and dear ones and there is no scope to neglect them, highlighting her government's steps for protecting the rights of the disabled and ensuring their welfare. Sheikh Hasina urged the well-off people to supplement the government's efforts in this regard. She called for not to neglect the persons with disabilities, saying all will have to build up a mentality to be more close with them. The Prime Minister said her government has been working ceaselessly for the welfare of the people of the country. The Premier said the government has undertaken different programs for equal rights of the disabled people and protecting their dignity and their overall development. Sheikh Hasina said the government has framed a realistic education policy with an aim that no child could be kept away from education due to disability. Function was also addressed by Health Minister Mohammed Nasim, Social Welfare Secretary Zillar Rahman and President of Jatiyo Pratibandhi Forum Saeedul Haq. Later, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina witnessed a cultural, colourful function performed by the children with disabilities.
জলে কুচলা তলে ডুবিল সনাতন আজ সারা না কাল সারা না পাইছে দর্শন
Aggrieved aspirants have begun to submit appeals to the Election Commission challenging the cancellation of their nomination papers by returning officers for the next general election. 82 persons lodged appeal with the Election Commission on the first day today. Aggrieved candidates have opportunity to file appeals till December 5th. The Election Commission will dispose of the appeals by December 9, following hearings to be held at the Election Commission Secretariat from December 6 to 8. Meanwhile, the Election Commission has sent letters to the 39 registered parties asking to name their final candidates by December 9th in the parliamentary seats where the parties or alliances have more than one candidate. If the political parties do not inform about a single candidate, valid candidates of alliances would take part in the polls with their respective symbols. If there remains more than one candidate of a party in a seat, all nomination papers of the party in the concerned seat will be cancelled. Election Commissioner Mahbub Talukdar has urged officials concerned to apply the electoral rules equally for all candidates in the upcoming general election scheduled to be held on December 30th. He was addressing the inaugural program of Training for Trainers workshop arranged for election officials at Nirbachon Bhavan in Dhaka today. Mentioning that the Election Commission will never tolerate any negligence of the election officials in performing their duties during the polls, the Election Commissioner called upon the election officials to work without any fear. Senior officials of the Election Commission and the Electoral Training Institute were present in the program, where about 408 participants from 13 districts took part.
Awami League General Secretary Obaidul Qadir has said the cancellation of the nomination papers is the jurisdiction of the Election Commission. He said this while speaking at a press briefing at Awami League President's office at Dhanmondi in Dhaka today. Replying to a question regarding the cancellation of Khaleda Zia's nomination papers, Obaidul Qadir told the journalists, due to being convicted by the courts, her candidature has been declared invalid. Candidates from the 14-party alliance were also among those who have lost their candidacies under electoral rules and regulations. Obaidul Qadir urged the BNP to contest in the 11th parliamentary elections for the greater interests of the people of the country. Now BTV's regular field report, People's Voice on Politics and Election. Discussions, table talks and conversations are going on in every corner of the country as national election comes nearer. Mass people are discussing about the government's performance, development of localities, dreams and possibilities of future Bangladesh. Talking to BTV, some elderly persons from Bajra Jogoni Bazar of Munshiganj district expressed their thoughts over the next general election. One of them said a BNP leader told them that there are freedom fighters in Jamaat-e-Islami, which is not true. Rather, it is a tactic to attract voters' attention and win the election. It is really upsetting when any freedom fighter makes liaison with Jamaat-e-Islami, he added. Another person said huge development works has been done across the country. Many roads, bridges, schools, mosques, temples have been built. Also, employment generation is much higher than ever before. Another elderly man said present government has started distributing various allowances. Elderly persons, widowed women and disabled peoples are getting allowances.
Now international news. Climate change conference known as COP24 began today at Katowice in Poland. Over 2 weeks, nations will finalize how to implement the goal of limiting global warming to significantly less than 2 degrees. Speaking at the opening ceremony, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said climate change was already a matter of life and death for many countries. Antonio Guterres explained that the world is nowhere near where it needs to be on the transition to a low-carbon economy. The meeting is the most critical on climate change since the 2015 Paris Agreement. The Conference of the Parties, the first to be held since the landmark Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change (IPCC) report on limiting global temperature rise to 1.5 Celsius, came out in October. A UN plane is to evacuate wounded Houthi rebels from Yemen in an effort to build confidence ahead of peace talks, the Saudi-led military coalition fighting the rebels says. The 50 rebels are due to be flown from the rebel-held capital Sana'a for treatment in Oman later today. UN-sponsored talks between the rebels and the Saudi-backed government are expected to start in the coming days. The war has caused the world's worst humanitarian crisis in recent times. In nearly 4 years of conflict in Yemen, thousands of people have been killed in fighting and millions have been pushed to the brink of starvation.
And now news from the world of sports. Chittagong Abahoni beat Nofel Sporting Club by 3-0 in the Independence Cup football tournament today. Mohamed Ba gave the lead for Abahoni in the 19th minute of the match at the Bangabandhu National Stadium. Magalan Awala doubled the margin for Chittagong Abahoni in the 54th minute of the match. In the 62nd minute, Mohamed Ba scored his second and the team's third goal. In the second match of the day, Mohammedan Sporting Club played a goalless draw with Rahmatganj MFS. Cricket, New Zealand scored 229 for 7 in their first innings at stumps of day 1 in the Abu Dhabi Test against Pakistan. Vijay Watling and William Somerville were on the crease with 42 and 12 runs respectively. Earlier, New Zealand won the toss and decided to bat first. Kane Williamson scored 89 while Jeet Raval scored 45 for the Kiwis. The 3-match Test series are level at 1-1. Now to end the bulletin, here again are the main points. Cabinet approves draft of EPZ Labour Law 2018 having provision for formation of EPZ Labour Welfare Union. Government formulating policies to ensure rights of disabled and disadvantaged communities in government services, says Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina at International Disabled Day function. Appeal against rejection of nomination papers starts. EC issues letters to political parties to name final candidates by December the 9th. Awami League does not want one-sided election and rejection of nomination papers is EC's jurisdiction, says Obaidul Qadir. Climate talks start in Poland amid call to take immediate and effective measures against climate change. And Chattogram Abahoni beat Nofel Sporting Club 3-0 in Shadinada Cup football.
That's all from the newsroom for the moment. Thank you for staying with us and we invite you to watch our 11:30 Bangla News. Until then, Khuda Hafiz.
Khuda Hafiz.